Welcome to Secret Police, where we explore the history and methods of the world's most brutal secret police forces. Today I have something special for you, a much overdue interview with the host of the Eastern Border podcast and Latvian journalist, Kristaps Andrejsons. Kristaps started his show in 2009 and has spread his immense wealth and knowledge about the Soviet Union across the world. He's been very kind to me since he gave my show a shout out early on and was generous enough to give me quite a bit of his time to get this episode done. We first recorded in September, then I was an idiot and didn't download the files to edit within Discord's allotted time of 6 days. We met again and suffered technical difficulties, mostly my internet deciding to be unreliable during our recording. Hence the name of this episode. We discussed the Oprichniki, how Soviet secret services changed the culture in Russia and Eastern Europe, and where Russia and its security apparatus finds itself today, and where it's headed into the future. I hope you enjoy.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody. We are in our second trying to understand a lot of things about Secret Police podcast and Secret Police in general, because this is the second take. We recorded one. It was
About a month ago.
About a month ago, yeah. Also, hello, people. I should probably introduce myself. Hello, I am Kristaps Andrejsons. You do not need to know who I am at all. If you ask too many questions, then the KGB shall come and ask you some. I host the Eastern Border podcast. You probably have heard of me. Maybe not. I don't know. But I do this show called the Eastern Border for, I don't know, 10 years now, where I'm explaining Soviet Union to people in Russia and right now the war. And great friend of Secret Police podcast, because he's been on my show, and we're just trying to fix the thing that we tried to record last time. Lots of technical difficulties. Nice to be on here. Amazing to be here again.
Yeah, I'm glad you're on. And like I said last time too, I'd meant to have you on earlier, and it just just with like schedules and time differences and things like that, and it hadn't happened. But you've been very, I'd say, instrumental in helping me, as my show is only about a year old, in helping me build an audience and
it's a
getting
thing
it
that
out
we do.
Yeah,
That's a thing that we do, and I'm really happy that I have been able to do so, because I was propped up by the likes of Dan Carlin and Daniel Libolelli and even Martyrmate, with whom we have some disagreements with, but still. And I think, among podcasters, if you're a young podcaster listening to this, you can reach out to me or Secret Police Podcast, and we will help you. We will help
Please
you
do.
because in the podcasting sphere, I haven't heard of any podcaster drama, as I've seen in YouTube, but we're trying to help each other out. And well, as truly the subject matter of Secret Police has been Russian Secret Police for a while. And I'm sort of the Russian culture, Eastern European Soviet culture person here. I gave him my blessing when he was doing episode 2. That much I remember. So that was fine.
And I was quite surprised. I can't describe to you how much I was fangirling.
Oh
when I saw that you had reached out and said you liked my show.
I do, because I do.
One of my big concerns when I first started was that I'm talking about a country and a region that I had never been to, and I sort of roll my eyes at Americans trying to talk about like these regions of the world that most Americans, I should say, have never been to.
That's at least you did it fine. The worst thing that I've done was I saw a show that was trying to build. I'm not going to name the show because that's going to be rude, but there was a show whose logo went all folk Cyrillic, using the reverse R's as regular R's and all this stuff.
Yeah, that's super cringy.
And I don't know about you, but to me, it's kind of like, it's not fun. It's stupid because you have to change your thought patterns, because I speak in Latvian, Russian, and English, and read a bit of German, read a bit of Japanese. But you shift your mental patterns. If you see Cyrillic, you read in Cyrillic. You treat it that way.
Yeah.
So then you read something written in this Fox, Cyril, it takes a time to understand that. Wait, what? Oh no, there's someone just acting, just stupid.
I think it's one of the Call of Duty games. It's the I almost said episode. It's the mission where you're like
in Chernobyl.
You're like
Chernobyl, I think.
Oh no, it's one at the airport where you're like a terrorist group, and if you look at some of the kiosks in this airport, they do exactly what you were describing, where they have stuff that's like this faux Cyrillic English mixture.
That mission I was trying to think of is from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and it's called No Russian.
That is just horrible, because that's just I don't even know. I'm used to see. That's the thing. I'm used to feeling like the odd man out, because online speaking. Well, yeah. I live in Latvia. Not many people care about a region that much, so that kind of ties me to your end, where we're both not from the most mainstream of situations there, and that's because we both like aviation.
Yes, I am a student pilot in training,
and I fly PV drones. So yeah, that's also a thing that unites us, by the way. But let's get on to the subject matter, because we've been warmed up, and this is going to take 3 hours if we just get on the sideline.
If we just keep BSing.
Oh no! Yeah.
You have this exciting news source that you were telling me about.
Oh yeah,
about the opportunity.
See, since last time I wasn't able to talk much about that part. I was able to talk about NKVD and Czeka and GKCB, and all the other letters, the letter agencies.
Yes, they're numerous.
I call them the things. But then I managed to dig up, and I actually took a subscription. It cost me €3 per month, but I'll just cancel after this one. I got a subscription to something called Большая Российская энциклопедия, or the Great Russian Encyclopedia. Okay. And right now I'm opening this one, which is an article on Oprichnina, and they say they have the tags there, which students can check in because it's good for students, like political programs, courses, Oprichnina. And let me define you how the Russians this day see Oprichnina in themselves. It might be a bad solution, because I'm just opening a machine translation in English, because if I would do that myself, it's going to be pretty rough. But I'll just fix the grammar letters here. Oprichnina, from the old Russian Oprichny, separate special, a separate formation within the Russian state. Oprichny was the thing. The personal possession of Tsar Ivan IV Vasilievich, the terrible. The terrible, however, is a horrible word. That should be the awesome, or the thunderous, and his family. This was, it had its own socio-political institutions, governing bodies, military forces, service organization, and finances. It was the main weapon in the Tsar's plan in his struggle to strengthen personal power, to establish complete control over the Boyar Duma, the political and church elites, in confrontation with individuals who, in his eyes, were traitors and enemies of the state. Created by decree, dated in historiography to the period no earlier than January 5th and no later than February 15th, 1565. The Oprichnina was consistently separated from the rest of the state. The Zemshina. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
This is the thing we didn't mention last time. Oprichnina, technically, as it starts out, it's not part of the state.
It's like a state within a state, almost.
It's a state within the state. And this should kind of inform you how everything is going to go from there. No, the Siloviki today and everything, this is why they don't see themselves that much, because they were established in their own traditional history completely separately from everything possibly.
I was trying to think of an equivalent, like a modern day equivalent of for how to think about the Oprichnina, like some sort of shadow government almost within a legitimate government.
They had their own territories. They had their own serfdom. Like they were just like there are boyars, right? There are boyars who are just like the traditional feudal court. Then there's the Oprichnina. They function exactly the same. They have their own serf villages. They oppress people of their own. The guys who are in this, they have their own thing. It's just separate. It's just so weird.
And they
They
went
have
and
their own
massacred
lands.
people.
I
Like in
mean,
Novgorod.
Yeah, like in Novgorod. This is the thing, because again, Novgorod, not Nizhny Novgorod. We reminded this.
Yes,
this
we had
last
this whole last time we had this whole conversation because when I did this first episode, my brain was in Nizhny Novgorod, which is east of Moscow. But then revisiting the episode to do a video for YouTube, I realized that it's north of Moscow, but
Veliki Novgorod.
yes, thank you. And I had to like I didn't make an edit. I never like go and like re-edit my episodes, but I definitely wrote something like, "Hey,
No.
I fucked up."
But like this is what the Russian encyclopedia says. I'll open this encyclopedia for other articles too. I just got it. Oprichnina terror reached its apogee during Ivan IV's campaign against Novgorod and Pskov, December 1569, February 1570, and during executions in Moscow in August. The reason for the campaign was the testimony of the Novgorod clerk during torture in the quote-unquote case of Prince Vladimir Andreyevich, as well as a certain Polish memorandum sent from Novgorod. The punitive expedition was prepared in secret as a large-scale military operation. As they advanced, the Oprichniki killed everyone passing by, and the cities and villages were subjected to pogroms starting from the Tver border. In Tver, the property of monasteries and churches was first destroyed or confiscated, then the settlements were destroyed. The Oprichniki executed members of the clergy, and there is also a special sentence here. G.L. Strugatsko-Bielski strangled the former Metropolitan Philip II in the Tver Otroch in honor of blah, 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 after his refusal to press the complaint. Everyone was killed, local clerks, children of boyars and merchants, as well as those still in the Red Exile. Like, massive, just, you go on a military campaign, you conquer the land, then the Oprichnina comes in and, just,
brutalizes everybody that's left.
That scares me. And they are their own thing.
Yeah.
They are not, this is what's important, which I learned the last time. They are not subject to the crown. They are subject to Ivan IV.
It's what we would call extrajudicial.
Yes, it's kind of like the FBI and something. I presume.
If we can compare the FBI to the Oprichniki.
Well, it's I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't even know about the FBI that much. Thankfully I haven't had any interactions with the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
I had a very interesting interaction with the FBI a couple months ago.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Split it in.
Well, so I definitely told this story on the first. Yeah.
I think you did, but I might have forgotten this. So
I was out walking my dog, and I saw an armored vehicle in this parking lot that's like behind our house. I got a little closer, as one does, thinking it was just like the county sheriff or something. No, here are these guys in full tack gear and in big words on the front, it says FBI. So I did what a normal person would do and walked up to them and said, "Hey, what's going on here?" Because they were sort of parked in front of somebody's house that we don't know them, but it's like this elderly woman. And I was like, man, what was she doing that got these guys' attention? No, they were just waiting there for some sort of like SWAT drill, basically. So instead of building an entire house to practice in for like raids and stuff that would cost the FBI money, they wait for a home in the area to be demolished, and they weren't about to demolish this woman's house. There's some I didn't see that. It's not in my neighborhood. They were waiting to go to some other home that was about to be demolished, and they were going to do some sort of like practice there before they tore it down. So they were going to fuck it up before they took a wrecking ball to it.
And how the rest of that story goes is that I continued to walk my dog, and then on my way back home, I thought, hey, I should go tell these guys about my show. They're FBI agents. Why not? And that's exactly what I did.
Well. Meanwhile, I can tell you something more. Like as you're going to ask me more questions, I just wanted to finish my Oprichnina thing about how it's a state within the state with an example that we also spoke about last time we recorded this. which is lost to the ages now, their listeners. But I found the article from Reuters, which is a very big news agency, about how Iron Felix rises again over Russia's. They call it spy service. I call it secret police service.
Yeah.
And they had a quote from Sergei Narishkin, the chief of Russia's foreign intelligence service, the SVR. Yeah, right. Well, it's the successor to KGB's first chief directorate. It's just same thing. There is no FSB. That is just the same stupid thing. And he wrote in no less than September 11th, 2023. September 11th, right? Nice day to pick things. Quote, colleagues, the sculpture in front of which we are standing is a somewhat reduced copy of the famous monument to Dzerzhinsky installed on Lubyanka Square in Moscow in 1958, Narishkin said on the anniversary of Dzerzhinsky's birthday. His winged words that only a person with a cold head, a warm heart, and clean hands can become a security officer have become a significant moral guideline for several generations of employees of the security agencies of our country. That's how they open this. And I would like to explain something. This cold head, warm heart, and clean hands. Yeah, cold head means that you're ready to kill a moment's notice. Warm heart means that, you're still alive. And clean hands is because you have leather gloves, because you can, throw the blood away. That's the political joke here. But we've come from this to that. And Felix Dzerzhinsky, a Polish person by nationality, no less.
And from a bourgeois family, ironically, too, just like Lenin.
Yeah, it's like he's basically the symbol of the Red Terror, of everything. It's kind of like
of Lenin's Red Terror.
Not of Lenin's Red Terror at the beginning, yeah. But just Stalin also kind of like them, but Lenin was not nice. This is what I kind of also. This is what people misunderstand often. People kind of think that Lenin was the good guy and he did the right thing. Then Stalin came up and corrupted the whole thing. No, that is a mistake. Lenin was not a nice person through and through. But that you should listen to about in my podcast instead of this one. But if we're talking secret police stuff, yeah, well, this is why right now in Modern Russia we have Felix Dzerzhinsky statues.
When I was doing my research on Soviet security services, I really went into it expecting that the NKVD was going to be the worst of them and by worst I mean in terms of just like horrors perpetrated or lives. But I was actually really surprised and pretty disgusted about the Cheka.
Well, there's a reason why everyone calls them Cheka, no matter the iteration. They have left the biggest mark. I mean, everyone from even today, you hear people saying that the Cheka people came.
A term that really stuck through the ages, and I remember last time we talked that you were saying that the Soviet security forces really changed the culture in Eastern Europe quite a bit, and in Russia too, quite a bit.
Yeah, that's the situation here, because the big aspect here is how if they are independent from the state in many ways, then they kind of influence the culture, and then culture influences them back. For example, in Latvia, I can tell you about these years that we've had there. In Latvia, we used to be extroverted people. We used to be friendly. We weren't as much Nordic as we were, just Western. But if you will live under the control of and under constant supervision and threat from the secret police, of course you start to think about whether or not you can speak to someone. You use these political jokes as a form of recognizing who's your friend, who's not your friend, and then you start to mistrust everyone around you all the time. And it has left a really big mark on everything that's been going on here in Latvia and in the Baltics and in the region in general. Because we became much more introverted, much more, much less friendly to foreigners. Not just foreigners, much less friendly to everyone all the time. It's all about whether or not you do not speak to people in the street. You do not talk about your emotions. You do not talk about a lot of things, because you never know who might be listening and who the other party is. So, and that's the scary part, because it truly felt that way. You see, And if it we used to be more open, more sort of thing, but like when you know that when we had a lot of these documents happening, like when your friends and your neighbors they can just write a denunciation on you, right? And then you're gone. Well, and then you know that every time in your workplace that you exist there, that every time there's a trip happening, and there every time something's going on, there will be people who are from that other side, from these vetted agents, and most of the agents also they're not there because they're evil people. They're there because they probably also have something dark in their family or friend circle, and they have just been you know, basically told to, work with us or we'll punish your family, all that stuff. Kind of a hard thing to comprehend. It really changed the whole culture of a bunch of countries here, especially here in Latvia. We used to be friendlier and nicer to people. Right now, we're very much like very introverted, and it's left scars that I call them post-Soviet mentality, and I try to, work my best to get rid of them. A lot of xenophobia there, a lot of mistrust, a lot of in focusing inwards rather outwards, and just mistrusting new ideas in general, which is always a bad thing. Just being so skeptic that you can't even really accept the fact that some things weren't as good. It's really, being living under this whole situation where you might as well be just where you just might be where you don't know if one wrong word said at a conversation just fixes up your whole career for a while.
This is where the internet decided to crap out on me.
So we're finally back in our what is this, fourth attempt, fifth, sixth?
The FSB doesn't want anybody listening to this.
Of course. I mean, and it's not even a joke. You are hearing this in one go, but let me tell you, this episode was not made in one go. It was pretty horrible. Now let's go back talking about Czech as we were before.
Yes, something cheery.
Well, of course, it's the happiest thing that we could do.
I thought the Checo was like a horror movie level terror. Oh yeah, and then you said that you weren't sure of the kind of people that were recruited to carry out those things, but there had to be a lot of fear in order to keep the early Soviet Union together.
Of course, because you're coming out of war communism. If you remember, in just after Soviet Union was declared, there was this thing called war communism because there's a massive Ungarn Sternberg and all his buddies are acting crazy around those parts, and it's pretty nasty. We'll get Alex on. We'll get Alex on to speak more about the Mad Baron. But it's a civil war. There is war communism happening. Everyone's properties are being taken. Everyone's cows are just being stolen by other people. So you have to put on the economical leash. You have to get rid of the kulaks. You have to focus on actually, winning the whole situation. So and then the Checker comes in real handy at this point. But it's still nowhere near the whole and they were rough. They were truly rough, and they did my worst thing that I think I wrote for Jordan Harbour. If you remember that guy, he's from Canada, and he did this Twilight Histories podcast, and I wrote one for him about the Czech operational practices. And my scariest thing about Czech was the kishka, the whole pit that they would put you in there where you couldn't sit down. Kishka means the kind of the intestine thing, and that was just scary. These guys.
Well, then they would douse people with water in the winter in those, and then turn them into statues, frozen statues.
Well, that's a popular treatment throughout the history, but the sheer level. I mean, I last time we spoke about this, because again, lots of attempts. I thought it may be some sadism, but I think this currently with current events, I'm starting to think that this is mostly a result of people being dehumanized to the maximum. Yeah. It's a result of you can't do this unless because there were a lot of people working in the checkup, right? And you can't have all these people working there and doing all these things if you do not fully believe that what you're doing is actually the right thing, I think it was a result of mass dehumanization, in a sense.
You manipulate people into
You
seeing
manipulate people
them
into
as
thinking,
objects.
yeah,
And,
you have to get the ideology in to the point where they really have to see the other, so to speak, as someone less than human, less
yes.
than something. And that's a weird thing because, again, I read about other secret services, and there were sure CIA did a lot of experimentation on people and everything, and FBI as well. But I haven't. I really have. I think this comes again from the Oprichnina. I think that the Czech are the only ones that truly kind of treat their own people as the enemy, if you know what I mean. Because they are. This is why I mentioned the preach in the beginning, because they are separate from the structure. They do not even see their own people as themselves in a way. I think it's more like they truly are trained from the very inception in this very special case of Russia to see even your own countrymen as the other, which is genuinely scary. Truly, it's just something that I don't know. I would be very afraid of.
And you said that now they're wanting to, or I don't know if they are just wanting to, or if they already have put up a new statue of Felix Dzerzhinsky.
Oh, they did. They did. I that was the thing that I read, which is, by the way, also saved. Is the opening speech about the Dzerzhinsky statue by Sergei Narishkin, chief of Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, the SVR.
I found some footage on Instagram. Somebody posted of the statue being torn down in the 90s. Comments were troubling. There was a lot of people saying, like, look at those traitors.
But Felix Dzerzhinsky wasn't even Russian. He was Polish.
No, he's Polish. And also like from a bourgeois family, just like Lenin.
It always comes down to some sort of weird situation where, like, we can all still think about what does it even mean to be a part of any of these secret police situations, because once it comes down to it, what, like, you can ask a lot of questions, but like, why would you do that is one question. Number two question is what would make a government decide that they need such a complete control over everyone? Because this is a control to to a very serious level. Like, this alone shows that it wouldn't be there if the government wouldn't need it. It's like, if communism, as Soviet Union portrayed it, it would be truly the best ideology ever, then why would you need a police that literally prohibits people from leaving their own country? And why would you need to keep everyone on super tight leash? There's something going on there that the Soviet government might not have, told the people exactly as it was.
Do you think Felix Dzerzhinsky ever had ambitions to lead the Soviet Union himself?
Not sure about that. Really not sure about that, but I'm pretty sure everyone thought this way because, like we checked last time, it was just, if you look at the early leaders, especially in the Soviet era, everything, the leaders of the secret police in Russia, they don't tend to live very long, prosperous lives.
No.
For example, Dzerzhinsky himself apparently, Britannica.com, and I'm using the neutral encyclopedia here. Britannica.com, the British encyclopedia, just writes about his death. Quote: in 1926, during a debate at Central Committee session, Dzerzhinsky collapsed and died.
How convenient.
And if you look at everyone else, and some of them were truly true pieces of work. I mean, like I said, we spoke about this last time, but if you watch Death of Stalin movie, when you see Beria dying, I had to root for Zhukov and Khrushchev, which is hard for me because they also are not the best of people. But Beria was such a horrible person.
I know.
That,
oh my God.
Like we spoke about this. But the thing is that, again, being one of these people, right, who were leading the whole secret police in the Soviet Union and previously Russia, yeah, that's not the best job to have.
No,
by no means. That is a very dangerous job to have. And I think that if Dzerzhinsky had showed any ambition whatsoever, he'd be gone from his post way earlier than he Actually, totally randomly died from we do not know what, but totally natural causes. Natural causes, nothing else. Of course.
It's interesting because you'd think that the security chief is like the best place. The best place to take over from the leader because they have like the manpower.
Not really, because if you've heard my show, you've heard about the pillars of Kremlin, the towers of Kremlin, as they're called. There are three of them from old times. One is the KGB, the secret police. They always watched over everyone and everything. Then there's the army, who are in every possible occasion in a massive rivalry with the KGB, right? And then there's the party, who still control the posts and everything, and they might like not have the guns. However, what they do have is often scarier. They have the potential to get your friends in the right positions. They're kind of the party is also a sort of one of these pillars of what's happening there. So it's always a competition. And every general who commands units has always someone attached to them in the Soviet Union, and right now as well. Right now, pretty much as well. There are political units attached to the Russian armies. They're not called politcommissars anymore, but they're still there.
They essentially serve the same purpose.
Yeah, and they sometimes give out the weirdest, the most dumbest of commands as well. But it is what it is. It's just that there is massive rivalry, and at least right now, well, what Putin used to do, that's one of the things that, sorry for the tangent, but one of the things that Putin used to be all about is how he had sort of united, in a way, these Kremlin towers, right? However, it seems to be that this is not exactly the case anymore. It seems that they are still very proactively bashing each other's head in with a stick, metaphorical stick, but still.
So since we're on the topic of the Kremlin, we sort of touched on this before we started recording.
We touched on everything before. We touched on everything.
What's going on with Putin's health?
Who knows, to be honest. If someone tells you Putin's dead, if someone tells you Putin had a heart attack, do not believe them. Because there was this thing. There is Vladimir Solovey, a very infamous, so to speak, guy who's a politologist. Very smart person, really. However, he's also very much a rumor mill. And you should not trust him really that much. And when the day that everyone spoke about Putin's heart attack and how Putin actually might be gone, he was the guy that managed to make a live stream about on Telegram about life without Putin. What's going to happen next? And guess what? During his live stream, to which he sold 200 and like it was, he sold a bunch of tickets and they cost like €10 a piece, which is about I think $11 maybe. But during that stuff, we got all the news about, oh no, Putin's actually dead. He's like being having a heart attack. No, that's all nonsense. That's all trickery. I don't even know who's benefiting from this. It's just another way how to.
I was gonna say, what's the point then?
There is no point. It's just some people wanting to make money from all this situation. Because like always and everywhere, like even internally inside the whole apparatus, like always, agents spying on other agents. And you should know the fact that in the Soviet Union, it was not just everyone is happily united against the capitalist forces. It was the Vienna Bureau fighting against, rivaling the Moscow, rivaling St. Petersburg, rivaling everyone else, trying to fight for their own little thing.
Yeah, exactly. The urban centers rivaling the rest of the country.
It's what's happened. It happens all the time. You can't do anything about it. So that's like kind of in any huge country that probably is that way. Although I don't even know. I mean, is there? I know that there's sorry for the tangent once again, but I know that there's an Army versus Navy American football game.
There is.
Is there a CIA versus FBI football game?
No, but that would be awesome. Maybe we should start something like that.
I have actually now seen a whole game of American football thanks to my people on Discord. Because some games happened in London.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw one. I think it was between Buffalo Bills and I don't remember the other team. Well, horrific. But I've seen one. But talking about all this secret police stuff, that's the thing. It's all about the culture part. And right now, everyone expects them to be powerful and everywhere, and sometimes they're not. And currently, the biggest issue is the all of these cracks that we're seeing lately. All of the all the facts that show us how it degraded over time. In a way, the control. As weird as it seems, if you think about it, Soviet Union did not need a Rosgvardia unit. The Soviet Union and did not need a unit that will go out and beat protesters on the streets. Think about it. They did not need a unit like that because they knew no one would do it, because everyone was too afraid of the secret police, because they
To
knew
even
that
try.
they would. Yeah, too scared to even try. Right now, if you need a special unit to do that, then it kind of shows that
People aren't scared enough to not do it.
people aren't scared enough. Yeah, they're still scared of the FSB and everything, but totally makes sense.
Now, is that to say that like people didn't actually openly protest, say like
Sometimes
Stalin?
they did. Very
So
no
it's just
one
not talked about.
no one openly protested Stalin. There were some cases like in 1962 later on, but it wasn't exactly about Stalin. There were some protests. There were some people who went on singular actions and everything, and stuff, but it wasn't that widespread. There were some very brave people, and in some cases, some protests were for like very everyday things, and they just didn't go through as planned, because Soviets always had this collective responsibility. It's not that if something bad happens in your district and you deal with this and you report it upstairs, as they would say, then it doesn't mean that you're going to get off scot-free for dealing with this. You will just get punished for even, for even mentioning this, for even doing, something of the sort. I mentioned this in one of my early episodes because this comes from a small town in Latvia. Because a lot of people, in here, it was a complicated situation. Obviously, a lot of people, had family members who fought on both sides of the World War. Because Stalin comes in, murders a bunch of your family members, sends them to gulags. Then Hitler comes in, promises you freedom, and then you kind of believe him because there's no internet, there's no information available, and some of the people volunteered. So you go to fight against Stalin, and then you're in the front lines, and then messages come in that, oh no, this Hitler guy, yeah, he's now killing all your friends too. He's just as bad. And what you gonna do then?
It's almost as if they're the same person.
They're both megalomaniacal evil guys. But the thing is, a lot of people, were veterans of World War II here. And what happened was that, in the town of Smilta, one of the everything was split in kolkhozs, and as everything, and the kolkhoz was supposed to take care of its World War II veterans, and one guy was fighting, he was even in the Red Army, and the guys did not. The local kolkhoz did not repair his local house's roof for such a long time that he pulled out a mortar from his basement that he had saved up during the war and just started shelling the local kolkhoz administration building. That was never reported upstairs because that would be so horrible that they actually just fixed the roof. They took away the mortar from him, but that never got kicked upstairs. So like if you did tiny little things, then that'd be punished. If you did something truly outrageous, then probably that would be just put down, because the local KGB officer, he'd get into so much trouble for even allowing. Why does this person has a mortar? Why is he shell? What is going on? Like, this responsibility being kicked up, that's a major thing of the whole situation there. And this also kind of explains the whole attention to bureaucracy. I think we spoke about this last time. Again, one of the other things, no matter what happens, because of how this responsibility system works, you always want to have all the paperwork, because again, Stalin might purge someone, then Stalin is dead. Now Khrushchev is coming over, and and now the guy that you have sentenced to death turns out to be totally innocent and not guilty at all of any crimes. Who knows what's going on? Therefore, everyone had to do their paper. That's why the Soviet and Russian secret police has always been super obsessed, specifically with paperwork. Everything needs to have you have to have your T's crossed and everything. And if you compare it, for example, with the Nazis, Gestapo would just shoot you. They did not care about your thing. But this is why the torture was very much active in the Soviet Union, because they they needed you to sign that paper that you were actually guilty of what you were charged for. Then you had a show trial and thing, but they needed the confession.
Right.
Because
They
then
needed
they
the
can
confession.
at least, say if someone comes after them, look, he signed the confession. I don't know anything. This also shows the totality of the control, because even the secret police itself is afraid of the secret police. This is one of the jokes, by the way, because we, again, last time when we spoke, we spoke about the Soviet jokes and how we deal with these horrible subjects in a manner that makes us not go insane. There's this joke about Armenian radio, one of my favorites, as usual, right? And the joke is Armenian radio gets asked, will there still be secret police under communism? The KGB. Armenian radio answers, no. By that time, the people will have learned to rest themselves. which makes sense.
And in a way, it's sort of what you're saying about no protests. It's kind of true. They may not arrest themselves literally, but they're definitely showing a lot of self-restraint.
There were a few protests, a few of them, but they were really suppressed. And also remember the fact that one thing that really happened was also the hidden cities, not the hidden, but the closed cities, where everything was controlled. Like if you live near a secret object and everything, that happened. But I don't remember all the protesters, but there were some that protested against, for example, the invasion of Afghanistan. There were such people. They were arrested in like 15 minutes after the Red Square, in the Red Square. But it was about, I don't know, it was just one-off occasions. It didn't really happen that often. So there were people who did some protesting, but there were like, what actually happened the most were, I think, one thing that was played up in the death of Stalin.
I remember when we were watching that, you said that one thing that really got you pretty.
Soviet massacre.
Yeah, can you talk more about
massacre that happened
the massacre
there.
on the bridge? So you said that was like a pretty big inaccuracy, or like one of the scenes that they took the most liberties with.
Oh yeah. This is the thing is like they showed that there were people coming to see Stalin's body, and there were like too many of them, and then technically they were all shot, right? A lot of them, but like that never happened, and there was the insane amounts. What really happened was that the Novocherkassk massacre happened. I'm not even sure if that's happening, like how publicized it is these days. But this was the massacre which was committed by the Soviet Army and the KGB. In the movie, in the death of Stalin, they show like over 1,000 people dying or something, which would never happen in Moscow. But what happened is that Soviet Army and KGB killed a bunch of people who were rallying in the 2nd of June, 1962, because there was a labor strike in the electrolocomotive plant over there, because the wages were lowered to these people who worked there in this Novocherkassk electrolocomotive plant by about 35% of like total amount. At the same time, production quotas were set up for workers from the plant economy were like raised, and it was a huge mess. Like 1962 was a harsh year and everything. So protesters gathered the cities near, like people started to protest there, and they did not disperse. And then Soviet troops and KGB opened fire, killing 26 and wounding 87, including children. And it was insane.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was the biggest one happening there. Nothing in comparison to Soviet times. However, after this, there were show trials, arrests, and cover-ups. About 240 people were arrested. 7 people were convicted of mass disorder. Of course, everyone just got smashed on the head for everything, including people, on all sides of this situation. People got arrested, both who sort of organized everything. That was a big, big issue in 1962, when actually 62 people, because secret police is supposed to be, secret. They're not supposed to be in the open, and this was a major blunder.
Overt.
And this was very overt, and this was horrible. And then, like 240 people were arrested about this on both sides of everything. Okay, so that alone should show you how this whole thing was treated. But that was a massive inaccuracy, because again, in Moscow, for coming to praise Stalin, where someone was like driven to, the very idea that they would shoot someone over there, just a bit insane.
People did die at Stalin's wake, but I think they were
They
trampled.
were trampled, but it wasn't exactly organized. It was just, and also at that point, you don't even know, like, what if this is a fake? Everyone's afraid because, again, of all this ingrained of the Soviet culture. I spoke with Alistair Pitts from the Russophiles Unite movie podcast, who talks about Russian movies. I was invited there to watch the most depressing movie ever, the documentary about Stalin's death, which is like 5 hours long and has almost no text and everything. Yeah, but we had a nice conversation about this, and it was all about.
Is that more depressing than Come and See?
Oh, Come and See. For those of you who don't know, Come and See is Belarusian. It's even more depressing than. Like if you think Russian media is depressing, Come and See is Belarusian media. That's even more horrid. Do not watch Come and See if you're like no. Do watch Come and See, but just
if you don't have a strong stomach, don't.
Don't watch it with your kids.
That's
Definitely
no.
Come and
Even though
See
you saw
is,
it when you were 10.
Yeah, at school.
Oh my
gosh. Well, now that you have seen the movie, you can. It's it is the most realistic and most depressing war movie that you'll ever see in your life, by far at that. It is not a beautiful thing, but like, and the Stalin thing, I could see in their eyes and like what they were doing everywhere over there in the Stalin movie. I could see how everyone was just worried about how they, what if this is just a hoax? What if they're just testing us? What if they're just finding out who's like not mourning hard enough and all that stuff?
Right, or who we'll just kill the people that didn't show up.
Yeah, and they're running through this because, again, like in our previous times when we're recording this, I want to make sure that your listeners understand how ingrained this fear was. Everyone knew that it was there, that the whole Soviet situation was there, and everyone knew what was going on, but we were afraid. Everyone was afraid all the time, and that it changed our culture for the worse, and it changed, and then our culture grew. The new generation of these secret police people. The secret police was a state within a state. It was much more powerful than, I don't know, like CIA in comparison like they're professionals. Of course they are very professional people who have done their own like intelligence agency things, right? But the level of fear, like people make jokes openly about the CIA and the United States. They would never even think about such thing in the Soviet Union before, checking out who's your friend, whom can you trust, all that stuff. It was a much more cultural phenomenon than just a special department of some sort of secret service. That's my whole point here, and I think I'm really bad at conveying this because there's a lot to talk about in all these cases. I hope that I'm conveying my idea of this quite clearly.
You are. Thank you. And I want to ask you something I asked you the first time we recorded too is, are you able to tell me about some personal interactions you've had with secret police forces?
Well, let's just say, well, some of them live one floor above me for my own safety and protection. I'm just going to say that because of things that have happened. Okay. Secondly, I've also been arrested in Russia, and I've been arrested in Ukraine. In Ukraine, I got arrested because of Victor, but that's a whole new story. If you will join our Discord channel or go see Victor's
YouTube channel too.
You'll find things out. Victor is a special hero of everything. I have had interactions there. I have been vetted. But one thing that really, drove my knowledge about all this stuff is that, and I found out I can talk about this time. I had a stepdad and I had a brother. Stepdad has a brother. And he worked in our internal services. He worked there during the Soviet times. He was on the actually counter-terrorist unit, but the actual counter-terrorist unit, not the guys who pretend to be counter-terrorists and, just beat people up or something. No, the actual counter-terrorism unit. And then up until his death, he used to train Latvian Ministry of Interior counterintelligence guys up until I think the year 1998. So that's one thing, and he taught me a lot of things about how all this situation worked in the Soviet Union. that's my interaction there. I was told that I can speak about my stepfather's brother. His name was Gustafsons, no less, mind you, which is interesting. But yeah, he used to work in there.
Did he ever write anything down or record any memoirs or something like that?
No, he's the reason why I also know a bit more about guns than your average Latvian person.
What are the gun laws in Latvia?
Pretty much the same as everywhere else in the EU. We have strict gun laws. You have to pass through you have to do an exam on law, on first aid, and on gun handling. And you can only own smoothbore hunting guns, in which case you have to be in a hunting kind of society, or you can have a handgun, semi-auto, or only like semi-auto max for your own personal protection. No, nothing full auto allowed, and you have to pass a first aid test so that in case of whatever, you can give first aid to people. You have to pass a law test so that you know exactly when and how you can use the gun. And then you have to also pass a actual test. You have to go first to the firing range and shoot guns enough so that you understand how they function. Basically, so that you wouldn't hurt someone by an accident. It's a whole procedure. But I have to also state that it's not that horrible, because we also have to go through a lot of similar situations when we get our driver's licenses. You cannot get the driver's license without passing a first aid test.
Interesting.
It's because there's only 2 million of us. A lot of our laws are extremely lax and everything. However, everything that can possibly result in deaths or damage to our fellow Latvians, that's treated very, very seriously. Which kind of makes sense, because, again, only 2 million of us, after all.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I would have thought of doing first aid as part of a curriculum for owning a firearm. I would not have thought of that for driving, but it makes sense. We don't have to do that here.
Yeah, I know. We also can drink from the age of 16.
Yeah, it's probably good that 16-year-olds here aren't drunk and using firearms.
Yeah, because they can drive. Drinking and driving. Yeah, the DUI stuff is it can land you years in prison for driving under influence. Your car might get instantly confiscated. And by the way, at this point, sent to Ukraine, because that's another thing. If you're caught driving under the influence, and then your car can get confiscated from you, and what we do with the cars is we send them as aid to Ukraine. Yes, driving under influence is a hyper evil crime here, because a lot of deaths come from that.
I've known some people, like in my hometown, to die in car accidents, but I'm not sure of the ones I'm thinking of. I'm not sure if any of them were alcohol related. I don't think so.
It's a thing. Sometimes these things tend to happen. Like I don't have my driver's license, by the way. Yeah, I need to get one. I think I had one in the United States, because when I was living there for a bit, I went and did, because over there, at least, you just go and pass an exam.
Yeah, you don't even have to.
It.
Yeah, I mean,
your school.
there's quote unquote driving school.
Yeah, which surprised me. It's not mandatory. You have to just pay money, do an exam.
Yeah, it's a joke. I mean,
why? How?
As a teenager, I think it's more rigorous. At least it was in Washington State, where I used to live. But like in Minnesota, when I renewed my driver's license, all I had to do was pass an exam. But I see a lot of like really bad driving, especially around where I live, and it's like shocking to me that those kinds of people that I see weaving in and out of traffic.
I'll give a spoiler here. Also, one thing that is very weird here is that how all of you drive with manuals. How all you drive with automatic stick. We drive manual stick here every time in Europe.
So I learned on a manual, and I prefer it. I unfortunately now drive an automatic. That's just standard.
If we're back in the car business, because again, hi. By the way, nice being first time on your show. Finally, after how many times? It's weird. But yeah,
but I mean, other than the Listed Men episode, I suppose.
Well,
except I was.
No, you were on my.
Yeah.
That was on my show. This is on your show. This is different. again, we're doing this because, well, to be honest, if we're going to go down to all the crimes and all the horrible situations happening down there, and I have to record an episode on my own show after this one because pogroms happen. If we don't do jokes and don't do silly stuff, then it's very, very difficult to deal with this stuff. I wonder how do you manage to deal with this on your show? Silly jokes are the best, I think.
Yeah, I think so. When appropriate, I try to keep things pretty light. I knew going in that it couldn't just be like heavy all the time. Otherwise, it would just be unlistenable. So I have to pepper my dumbass humor in there, here and there.
Well, it is what it is. We all have to do these things sometimes because, especially when it comes to Russia, again, they said about, like, in the 19th century, they spoke about Prussian army, the German ones, the Königsberg ones, right? They spoke about how it was an army with a state. I would state that at least the Soviet Union, was a secret police with a state, if you think about it.
And is it still that way in the
You know
Russian
what?
Federation?
Right now, I don't think so. No, right now, I think it's more of a criminal organization with a state because, like, especially what happened in Dagestan yesterday, just
Yeah, talk about that. What happened in Dagestan yesterday?
oh boy. For that, you're gonna have to listen to my episode. But it just
Give the
basically in short pogroms, literal 21st century pogroms. There were all over a bunch of more of a Caucasus region places with Muslim majority populations. There were, like, people running around houses and hotels where they suspected Jewish people might be in. And in Dagestan, they actually stormed an airport. They stormed an airport, went onto the field and checked the landing planes because in the local Telegram channels, they had heard that there was a plane coming in from Israel and there might be Jewish refugees there.
I did
happened?
see that. I did see that.
One thing that shocked me was, like, when I saw how recently there was this charity thing where a bunch of people from a village had collected enough money to send a local kid to get some medicine in Israel, get treatment in Israel, because, well, Russia, sadly, these days is not known for high quality medical services. And one of the kids that had gotten a surgery was coming back with this plane, and he was, well, very much traumatized by how everything was happening there, and how propaganda handled this just pretty nasty. And the weirdest part is that this is the moment where the so-called police should be doing something, but they just dispersed, and one of them even had to record an account on how he even dared to pull out a gun against these people. And it seems kind of, again, with the decline of all the situation, seems kind of weird how they can beat up protesters and how they can deal with the regular stuff, but when it comes to actually stopping something, this, by the way, got this whole situation, it got classified not as anything, like, it got classified as just disturbances and hooliganism. Imagine this: a violent mob storms an international airport in the United States.
No, that would be,
or just storms it, and then they also just take over it and do it for racially motivated reasons, no less.
no, I mean, that would be a shock. I saw the footage. I did not read more into it, and I could just listen to your next episode.
But and I hope your listeners will.
Yeah,
it was because of the whole situation with Gaza and Israel.
I guess my question was it completely grassroots? Like, was it random? Like, you're saying that
it never is. It never is.
Okay,
that's one thing that you should learn. That Ramzan Kadyrov, with a huge influence over there, he's tried to show his power as well. And any pogrom in history ever has been either approved by the government. Like, no mob would ever go out on the street and do something like that if they wouldn't have at least a basic knowledge of that they're not going to get punished. They let people, like, after the airport was taken, that was a bit too much. But then, like, there were people who were doing this, they were just walking peacefully home, and very few were even arrested. Like, there was this quiet nod of approval, and cops, being very careful about what they saw and what they didn't see, just not to offend things. This is what you get when violence gets kind of normalized, I suppose.
Well, I thought this was kind of interesting because Putin had made some comment about
yeah, now they're trying to find like instigators, and they will find instigators. For example, Vladimir Solovyov, our favorite propagandist guy, right? He's already stated that he thinks that it is American responsibility, that it is the United States Secret Services, secret police, if you will, who's responsible
who are doing
for
this. Yeah, they always say that. And I thought it was, what I was going to say is I thought it was interesting thinking about how Putin, like not that long ago, was making a comment about Anatoly Chabayas leaving Russia for Israel, and like made some comment like, oh, he's no longer Anatoly Borosovich. He's now like Anatoly Israelievich or something like that.
Anatoly Chabayas was a minister in Boris Yeltsin's government who was instrumental in the development and implementation of the price liberalization and privatization schemes in the early 90s in Russia. When I was wrapping up part 11 for the Russia series, Chabayas had actually left Russia for Israel since he was the highest member of Putin's government who opposed the invasion of Ukraine. Anatoly Chabayas is Jewish, which is why Putin took shots at him in this particular speech. If you'd like to learn more, I would encourage you to listen to part 11 of the Russian Secret Police series.
Yeah, that's the thing, weird thing. And they still, and the still weird part is the fact that they still somehow call the Ukrainian side Nazis, and we're all Nazis, right? I mean, what do you...
nothing makes sense.
if there are pogroms in your country, right? If your country's the one that's doing pogroms, you kind of lose the right to call the other side Nazis. I would think, at least.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
you're the one. Alexander III didn't have the luxury of calling somebody else Nazis. They just had pogroms.
I suppose so, but this is also a result of all the xenophobia, and all what's happening right now. Because if everyone's your enemy, right? If everyone has been portrayed as the enemy of the people, if everyone is this bad person, if you portray everyone constantly as the enemy, I think the propaganda agency has taken over what previously the enemies of the people in the Soviet era, or at least they weren't portrayed in media as something that like that. The secret police used to be competent. They dealt with actual dissidents and people. They used to do things quietly. They were, you could never even imagine in Soviet era a pogrom happening, ever. Say what you want. There was anti-Semitism, but there wouldn't be like no open pogroms. But like, now I'll paraphrase Big Lebowski because that's a thing. Say what you want about the Soviet Union, but at least it was a state. It wasn't just a criminal organization. And I think the big shift happened in the 90s because of, these people, as we spoke before, a lot of them truly believed that they were doing something good for the state, right? And you have to believe that. And when the state itself goes away, then what do? You turn to other structures of sort of power that keep you sort of in check or something. So I think the big problem with this was when the 90s happened and the whole structure of the secret police and of the organized crime, when that whole thing shifted together and sort of became one and the same. I think that's where the downfall sort of happened. And I think that's where we can see how this whole thing is happening. And that's really sad because, again, I've spoken to a lot of people who used to work back then in the Soviet era. Not anymore, obviously, but some of them were, especially those who did the foreign service things, they were truly proud of what they were doing. They knew they were standing up to the United States in a sense that they truly felt like, okay, I don't like the Soviet Union, but they also didn't want the Americans meddling into this whole affair. It was a different sort of, I don't know, you could call
different
it
mindset
or something. Yeah, and now that's gone. Like, what do you do? And right now, this whole criminalization aspect. That's pretty horrible, I think. Because if you remember, again, there's always this whole idea of World War II cult, Можем повторить and all this stuff. And the gripe, yeah, we have our admin, by the way, in a fun conversation, is that Subtle Knife says her biggest takeaway is the Kristaps' biggest gripe is the secret police used to be competent. Yes, they used to be competent. Now they're not. Now they're just stupid. And the thing is, they used to be competent. They used to be scary. And now what? But now they're like kind of cosplayers. And the impact is gone. And the biggest issue is that, the secret police will have to do their job. Every country has their own secret services, right? All of them. There is no country without secret service. After this whole war ends, I believe it's going to fall apart. There's going to be a lot of issues there, but they're going to have some sort of way how to deal with these people who do pogroms, who are now returned from the war, who are now like organized crimes on the rise. You're going to have these professionals there. So the very fact that right now their secret police is incompetent means that for me, who lives next door to Russia, and for people inside Russia or whatever's going to be left of Russia, it's going to be horrible because they're going to have to deal with this extremely violent society, with people ready to do pogroms, and their own secret police not being competent enough to actually deal with the threats. That was my main point.
And I remember when you and Alex from History Impossible had a conversation about Alexander Dugin's daughter being killed. One of you said, like, I think it was you too. You said, if it had been the KGB, they would have gotten the right target.
Yep. I still believe that. I still truly believe that. The KGB, because of the things that I know about how everything works, I think that, like I said before, inside the whole secret services in the Soviet era, it was the thing that the CIA had the most money, the KGB had the best, because they had the most trained people. They used to take pride in the quality of their work. Because, again, we always speak about all the horrible stuff, right? But there are also, like in every secret service, there are people who are doing actually decent job as such as it is. You need to have someone to actually, check on to make sure terrorist attacks don't happen. As much as it is pretty horrible to need these people, we do need them. We do need people who are skilled in violence, that's how I like to put it, right? And if we don't, then sometimes bad things can happen. And I'm starting to think that in the future of Russia, there's a lot of bad things that are about to happen because of how they've lost a lot of these competencies.
How do you see the FSB or the next iteration evolving if Russia continues on the path that you predict that they will end up on? They can either not be as repressive or they can be more repressive.
I do not know how it's going to solve itself inside of Russia, right? What I do know for sure is that if everything goes on as I have foreseen it happen, then the United States and other countries are going to have their brilliant first pick of excellent, of people who knew stuff, of professionals. We're going to see a lot of, and the same thing's going to happen with scientists and everything. Because the brain drain is going to be massive. That's for sure.
Yeah.
We're going to see a lot of these things inside Russia. I think we're going to see a lot of regional powers, because definitely a lot of databases are going to get purged. A lot of because currently with all the corrupt governors and everything, and all the corrupt even people with corruption in FSB, there's going to be a lot of people who accidentally disappear, not to talk to anyone too much. That's my idea. And sorry for this being all philosophical and everything.
No, it's okay.
Because of my dealings with my journalism work, I know when the secret guys do the job right and when it's necessary. But it's also a job that requires a lot from people and can go horribly wrong. One thing that I've learned, there always needs to be accountability towards some politician, towards someone else. The secret services cannot ever be allowed to run themselves. Then everything goes horribly bad. That's how I view it personally.
Of my episodes, which one is your favorite?
KG Brinksmanship was the best one, because that tracks also with what I read from the Russian side of things about how all the dealings were happening
in the background,
and how things were going on. Then, of course, the one where you interrogate our friend Alex, which I still haven't listened to.
I think one of my favorite parts of that episode is at the very beginning about how he started podcasting. It has to do with termites. Yeah.
Oh no. The brinksmanship thing is like there's an author called Vladimir Razun. You should know him he goes by the pen name Viktor Suvorov. He a lot of times writes about World War II. He has alternative theories or whatever, but he used to defect as a GRU agent from the Soviet Union to the British Secret Services. Now he writes books and gives lectures. At least he used to a while back ago.
Is he still alive?
I think so. He might be alive. I have a bunch of his books. He's a very interesting case where you can read about how, because he also participated personally. He was in the tank department when the whole Prague Spring happened, and he writes a lot about his experiences as a GRU agent, which is more reliable than his stuff on World War II, because he tends to cherry pick some things, and his World War II stuff that's a bit more controversial. However, when it comes to his work as a secret police agent, that's very reliable because he truly did defect in, I think, late 70s or early 80s. I don't remember exactly. But the book is called Aquarium, and I recommend everyone who wants to know more about, well, that was specifically GRU, but he draws and he talks a lot about the KGB as well there. That's one of the books that I highly recommend everyone reads if you want to get an additional thing. And I recommend you to read that as well, because that definitely has come out in English since, again, he defected to the UK. Vladimir Razun or Viktor Suvorov, highly recommended to learn more, especially from the insider perspective.
So we went on vacation in June. Well, we stayed in DC for first couple days before we drove down to North Carolina. And I really wanted to go see the plaque at the Occidental.
It's a restaurant
where Alexander Feklisov and John Scully met to discuss the deal to end the Cuban Missile Crisis. But at least on Google Maps, which isn't always accurate, it said that it was closed. We didn't get a chance to make our way over there to check out the plaque. I think it's like bronze or something with a little note about like at this table, these two men discussed the end of the Cuban Missile Crisis. It's obviously written more eloquently than that, but that's the gist of it.
The plaque says, at this table during the tense moments of the Cuban Missile Crisis, a Russian offer to withdraw missiles from Cuba was passed by the mysterious Russian Mr. X to ABC TV correspondent John Scully. On the basis of this meeting, the threat of a possible nuclear war was avoided.
No, like Cuban Missile Crisis and everything, that's one thing that I trust in the whole Secret Services part of Russian Federation today, is that I trust those guys who are still there to do like the Soviet missile test. The guys who are responsible for the nukes, basically, which is what I want to say. These guys are still the old school people, a lot of them, because back then, face is face and politics is politics. However, everyone has, their loved ones and their wives and everything, and no one really wanted to blow up the whole world. And the stupidest part about the whole Cold War and all that era is the fact that that at one point, if it would have gotten too far, no one would have wanted the world to explode, but it would have. Because one stupid decision would have led to another one, and we just have to be really happy that we're still, alive and kicking here. Right now, there are talks about Putin wanting to do a missile test. I don't think it's going to happen, though, but there are talks about that. Just a show of force. The problem is, it also breaks all sorts of international law if they actually do a missile test. Like, not a missile test, a nuclear bomb test in the atmosphere.
Like, what are they going to blow it up over, like Novaya Zemlya or something like that?
Yeah. However, remember that it's still pretty close to the Arctic Circle. And, do you know who also is pretty close to the Arctic Circle? Alaska and Canada and, all those nice places. No, we're getting back to depression. No, bad. Let's end this on a positive note because I have to record my own episode, which is pretty sad. So,
if you were in a police force, would you rather be one of the rank and file or one of the directors?
Definitely rank and file, 100%. 100%. Much safer life, easier, better. You can also go. You can maybe even retire at one point.
And not retire from life is what you mean.
Yeah, because there is no retiring from being up there on top. There is no such thing. Everyone knows in these parts of the world that there is no such thing as an ex-KGB agent, right? So, yeah, I'd like to be able to retire and live a peaceful life if I was one of those people. I don't know. I would like to be one of those people who are not even involved in Russian. It's called обеспечение. the securing things. I like to be one of those secretary people, who just sit there and do the boring stuff, the more boring than humanly possible. Doesn't seem as fun, but I accidentally happened to land a job that is also, which most people would probably consider fun, right? And well, it is, but there's no job security. I've been nearly killed a couple of times, and my fiance is not very satisfied about this whole situation. It's a lot more fuss than most people are ready for. And even if you think about this, it's way less cute than people think it actually is. To be honest. That is also a bit of a harsh truth here, because becoming a war correspondent and journalist is cool sometimes, yeah. But then there's also the horrible sides, and I'm pretty sure the same thing goes for secret agents, like the ones who are listening to this episode. I'm pretty sure there will be 100%.
I wonder that sometimes.
No, dude, if you're getting me on the show, you're at least gonna get the guys who listen to everything what I'm on. So at least that's guaranteed.
You mean the guys at Langley?
Yeah, the guys at Langley definitely, but the guys at St. Petersburg, because right now they've reshifted themselves as well, so it's going to be fun. But okay, I really have to finish up my script on my own episode. I'll make sure to let everyone know that we have recorded this.
Perfect.
On some fourth attempt or something.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for listening to the end. If you enjoyed this episode, please go check out the Eastern Border podcast hosted by my guest today, Kristaps Andrejsons. Please give him and myself a rating and review on your preferred podcast app if you're feeling generous. Please check out the Secret Police YouTube channel. I got a couple of videos on there with more in the works. Links to the books we discussed and my socials in the episode notes. More from Secret Police to come before the new year. Agents dismissed.